And I'm joined with a special surprise guest, Nigel Farage. Good to see you, sir.
Good morning. Great to be here.
So I got to actually introduce Nigel on the main stage a couple of years ago, and it was hilarious because I wrote out a speech that I thought was a great speech, and I didn't realize the speech was about 20 minutes long. And typically introductions tend to be like 90 seconds, maybe a minute or two. But you have such an amazing history and background, and people, of course, in Breitbart land associate you most of all with Brexit and really being the first major not just political thinker, but really communicator who is called out this globalist elite and these global bureaucratic bodies. And so you remember European Parliament. Talk about the state globally, and then I want you to focus on the United States and England later, but globally, this anti-establishment movement, this skepticism of world government.
Yeah, I mean, look, 2016 was an extraordinary year.
Yeah.
You know, not only Brexit, which of course nobody thought could happen, but Trump, which was obviously impossible.
Yes.
I mean, you had to be an idiot to think that Trump even had half a chance.
Right.
So we had this win double in 2016, and it's very interesting that the establishment didn't accept it then, and they don't accept it now.
Right.
So all the conspiracy about Russia, you've got it this side of the pond, we've got the same arguments going on our side of the pond, the constant attempts by mainstream media to denigrate the president's personality and character, and in our case, the arguments behind Brexit, and all of it where you've got this sort of unholy trinity of big politics, big banks, and big business.
Right.
The globalists.
That's right.
And so they're fighting back very, very hard. And yet, I'd say to your listeners, don't be despondent. The more they shout, the more they squeal, the more they scream, the more they lose.
That's right.
They're losing, and I see right across the West. Right across the West, I can honestly say to you, hand on heart, the revolution is still rolling.
Yeah, I think it's still rolling too, and we've had some setbacks though, and I think one of them, and we're going to be focusing on this a little bit later in the segment, is really the fact how it's become so clear that these tech giants that start in Silicon Valley, for example, out in California here in the States, and they've run into I think more trouble in Europe than they have in America so far, but they really are pushing a globalist agenda, and they're really trying to put their thumb on the scale against folks like you and I, and for folks that are part of the global.
Well, here's the irony. I mean, here's the irony.
Yeah.
That all of these vehicles that were designed, out in San Francisco, were designed by people who were globalists, and yet it was us, the anti-globalists, that mastered that technology, and we turned the tables on these guys.
You're exactly right.
Now, they're really now very unhappy about it, and we're seeing changes. We're seeing people being deleted from Twitter, etc.
Yes.
But far more sinister than that is George Soros working very much hand in glove with the European Commission. I mean, there is an attempt now in Europe to try to regulate in a big way the internet, and I'm very worried about that.
Yeah, and let's talk about those efforts, because, and it was Soros's role in them in particular, because I throw out Soros all the time on the show, but we don't always have the chance to really get into it.
Wow.
And
do you know, I stood up in November in the European Parliament, and I said, everyone's looking at collusion. Everyone's looking at, did anyone ever meet a Russian or drink a vodka? I said, we're all looking. I said, we're all looking in the wrong place. Well, I like a glass of vodka
every once in a while.
A bit early in the morning to think about it, but I said we're all looking in the wrong place.
Yeah.
I said, if you look at this Open Society Forum, this is the biggest political organisation the world has ever seen.
Yes.
George Soros hasn't given it 30 million; he's given it 30 billion.
Wow.
30 billion.
Yes.
And since I gave that speech, it's very interesting this, so I gave that speech, over the last 20 years, I have been called all the names, abusive names,
of course,
under the sun. The one I'd never been called until I gave the Soros speech was anti-Semite.
Of course.
So I'm now an anti-Semite, apparently.
Yes.
And I thought, wow, if they're being this abusive, what have they got to hide? And the more I'm digging, the more I'm delving, I'm finding every single country across the world where Soros's influence is there. And I do think we need to have a bigger, broader conversation about who this man is and what his organization is doing.
Exactly, and what he thinks of democracy, what he thinks of America. He thinks America is the biggest threat to the world. This is what he said. He's a man who's made his money manipulating currencies, and he is someone who is, I think, actually expressed anti-Semitic tendencies himself, even though we're the ones who get called anti-Semitic, even though we're overwhelmingly pro-Israel and pro-Jewish.
Of course we are. All of us that believe in the nation state believe in supporting Israel.
Of course.
Because they're surrounded by a group of countries that actually want to wipe them off the face of the earth.
Yes.
No, I think so. So I do think we got to talk a lot more about the role of this man.
Sure.
And I also think that there's no room, and I'm going to talk America here for a second.
Yeah, please.
There's no room for any complacency whatsoever. You know, I'm meeting delegates here at CPAC who are saying, oh, isn't it going well? The tax reforms, the president's popularity is rising. We're going to have a fantastic time in the midterms in November. And I just want to say to people who are here and who are Trump supporters, don't be complacent about this.
Absolutely right.
You know, it is really vital for the Trump project that he maintains those majorities. And so I think these midterms are going to be the linchpin, in a sense, of Trump completing the project and going on to an even bigger victory in a couple of years.
Yes, and this one, let's get back to the state of play here. I mean, we could talk Soros forever. And one thing, though, one final note, though, on the Soros front is that tactically, we do have to look at how the left succeeds, because they outspend the right, they out-organize, and that's how they take their crappy ideas and they actually get them implemented. Their ideas are terrible on their face, but
yes,
they are
well organized. They are well organized. And what they do, I have noticed this in the UK, is the way they mobilise their troops is actually a bit more professional than our side of the argument. So what we ought to do really is learn some lessons from them.
Yes. Okay. So Nigel Farage is with me. He's also a presenter on the LBC. He's a Fox News contributor. Can we get your LBC show stateside?
Yeah, absolutely. LBC.co.uk. And you can get that. And I'm about to launch in the next month or so a podcast.
Wonderful.
Which will be available on iTunes.
Great.
So, like you, Alex, I love radio. I think it is the intelligent medium.
I do too, because you can actually finish a thought. And Nigel is, I believe, the best communicator in the English language right now, at least when it comes to speaking. It's high praise, because I follow just about all the top communicators in the English language. So it's hopefully that means something to you, Nigel.
It certainly does. Thank you. You've made my day.
Let's talk about the state of play, and let's start with the UK, because this is where you're particularly an expert.
Yeah.
So one thing very interesting that happened, which is the establishment co-opted the Brexit movement a little bit, and it sort of pushed away some of the most articulate voices on Brexit that understood it. They've been marginalized, and now the establishment trying to come up with some sort of light compromise on Brexit seems to be going absolutely horribly. But you're inside of it. Tell me the truth. What's happening?
It's going badly. I mean, there's no point pretending. It's going badly. The red letter day is the 29th of March next year.
Yeah.
That is when the Article 50 process expires, and at 11 o'clock that night, we should be leaving the European Union, be leaving the treaty.
Right.
Now, it may well be that we leave the treaty, but we stay very, very closely wrapped up in all the EU regulations, and that would be bad. But if we leave the treaty, we can, at subsequent elections, do what we like, because we will genuinely be a sovereign country again. So I think, I'm very unhappy that we're not sitting around the table with America thrashing out a trade deal.
Yes, of course.
We're not grabbing these opportunities. Unfortunately, we have a Conservative Party in office in the UK who are not Conservative. They don't understand free markets.
That's right.
Capitalism. They are corporatists in every sense.
They've become a joke, and they've become one of these where they've seemed to have very little constituency. It doesn't seem like the true conservatives really are identified with the Conservative Party brand, and of course the left hates them for being not leftist.
Well, in a sense, that's why I was able to succeed with UKIP.
Right.
Because they'd all merged in the middle around a sort of globalist social democratic model,
yes,
which left a huge gap, a huge vacuum on the right, which in many ways UKIP filled, which got us the referendum. So, let's see what happens. My prediction right now is she will come back in October with a deal of some kind that's been negotiated. Prime Minister May.
Yeah.
A deal that's been negotiated with the European Commission. That deal will get put to Parliament. There will be a vote at some point between October and the spring of next year. And if that vote passes, we will leave the European Union. But I would estimate that even the best case scenario, that vote would pass with a majority of 6 or 7 votes. So it is very, very tight.
How long does she make it, do you think, at this point, on this trajectory?
She, with every day that passes, not only under her leadership does the Brexit deal get watered down, but the Marxists, and when I say Marxists, I really mean the people running the modern Labour Party in the UK are self-proclaimed Marxists.
Right.
And with every day of her premiership, they get a bit stronger too. So it's not going well. And I think we're very, very close to a leadership election being triggered.
I think so too. And it seems like it every day. The headlines are just, again, I just don't know who Raheem's dubbed her Appeaser Teresa.
Teresa the Appeaser.
Teresa the Appeaser on Breitbart
Yep.
London, which is very. I just don't see who she's going to appeal to at this point in time. Okay, so Nigel Farage is with me. We are live on our Facebook. Thanks for joining us there. We're loving your comments and questions. We'll try to get some of those. Nigel Farage, former leader of UKIP, LBC presenter. You can go to lbc.co.uk, Fox News contributor, and I think most importantly, the person who saw this rise of this sort of populist nationalist version of conservatism. You saw this before just about anyone else, maybe literally before anyone else. So give us your sense of, you spent a good amount of time stateside. Give us your sense of where we are in America.
I think the Trump project's going remarkably well. I think he has exceeded expectations.
Yeah.
I mean, firstly, you've got what's happening here within the economy. Not just tax cuts and tax reform, but deregulation. And that's actually very, very exciting.
This is a massive point, and it's one that I mention more than any other talk show host I know, and I still think I don't mention enough, which is, aside from maybe Justice Gorsuch and the tax cut, the other big accomplishment, the biggest accomplishment of this president, and there have been so many, what he's doing with energy is unbelievable, but it is the deregulation,
Absolutely.
the deconstruction of the administrative state, that for every new regulation, he's removing some 15 or 20.
22, he claims.
22, he
I mean,
claims.
it's unbelievable.
I was blown away when, and I think this came right from our friend Steve Bannon, that for every new one, you have to take away 2. He's doing that tenfold.
Yeah, I know, it's unbelievable. We haven't seen this agenda since Reagan and Thatcher back in the 1980s. And there is a disconnect, between elected politics and people running businesses out there in the real country.
Yes.
And this is the first president that has understood men and women who are out there working hard, taking risks, running companies, providing not just jobs but tax revenue. So that, I think, is amazing. And the second achievement, where he has completely blown people away, is his performance on the world stage. They all said he hasn't got the class, he hasn't got the style.
Right.
When he goes abroad, he will embarrass America.
Yeah.
He won't know how to conduct himself. And do you know something? I thought when he went to Paris on Bastille Day last year, there he was, meeting a president with diametrically opposed political views. And what did Trump do? He behaved with absolute total dignity. And by the time he got to China, I mean, he was walking around Beijing.
Yeah.
I thought he's about to put a bid in for the place.
Trump National Beijing. Yeah,
but he looked so at ease. He looked so confident. And if you go on to Davos, the last big foreign speech he gave, I thought there was a line he delivered there. The people in England said to me, we're beginning to get President Trump.
Yes.
The way he said, America first, but not alone.
That's exactly right.
And it got through because he'd been portrayed as somebody that literally wanted to put up the drawbridge on the 21st century, take America back to the 1950s. That was the way the media were portraying him. And I think the way that he spoke at Davos, I think his reputation around the world has grown immensely. He's woken us up to the potential horrors of North Korea when everybody else before had frankly just brushed it under the carpet. So I think both domestically and internationally, it's been a phenomenal year. And I think, with the midterms coming up, okay, he's in a good place, but nobody here at CPAC should be complacent about what's going to happen in November. And I guess the hope really is that everyone leaves here tomorrow and they commit to putting on their walking boots and getting out there and fighting. Okay,
so your speech today, CPAC, 3:35 p.m. Eastern, allegedly. So you guys got to tune in a little early, a little late. You never know exactly if they're going to be right on schedule. Nigel, a preview, please, of what you're going to talk about.
Well, number one, what I've just said, that the global community are not as hostile to Trump as they were even 3 or 4 months ago. There is a gradual melting, a softening that's going on. That's a good thing. And
we're also talking about how in some of his approval ratings he's outpacing Obama, and that's with the entire establishment press.
These are very impressive numbers that we're seeing. And secondly, I want to say, please, folks, don't judge the United Kingdom by the Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, or the Labour leader, Jeremy Corbyn, all of whom are saying, we don't want Trump to come to the United Kingdom. We'll put on the biggest protests in history.
I was going to ask about this next.
And I want to say to these people today, please don't judge me, don't judge my country by Sadiq Khan. Actually, people in the United Kingdom recognise the importance of the link with the United States of America, and at some point we do want the president to come. And secondly, I'll say that I know there's a bit of frustration in America. People are frustrated and they're confused about where Brexit is exactly. To which I shall say, I'm pretty confused too, right at the moment. But hold faith. We are going to get there. Whatever the establishment do, even if they force us, in the worst-case scenario, to have a second referendum on this, and that's not impossible, even if they do, we will win, and we will be, within a few years, in a position where the relationship between the USA and the UK, in terms of defence, security, and in terms of business, will be back to where it should be.
Now, Nigel, you are a politician, though, so I'm hearing a little happy talk here, because I have to tell you that the fact that you guys voted overwhelmingly, and you guys went up against exactly what those of us who supported Trump did. And I was there. I spent a lot of time in London the summer of Brexit, and it has been decided. It has been written that you guys want out of the EU, and is the political class that's doing everything they can to make sure that the people's will it does not happen, and you shouldn't have to vote again, and it's disheartening.
Well, of course not. But you see, here's the difference.
Yeah.
Here's the difference. Brexit was a revolution of ordinary people, but the day after Brexit, the power still resided in the same people who tried to stop it from happening.
Yes.
Trump's victory, your victory, was more complete.
True.
Because the day afterwards, he was in charge, and that's the big difference.
Fair enough.
Now,
Nigel,
I hope and pray.
Nigel Farage, this is the best part of CPAC, is that a surprise visit from one of the great, if not the great star of the conservative movement globally. Nigel Farage, thank you, sir.
Thank you very much indeed.
It's great to have you. LBC for his radio show, Fox News, you can see his TV commentary, and occasionally pops up on Breitbart News from time to time. I'm Alex Marlowe. This is Breitbart News Daily live from CPAC on SiriusXM Patriot and our Facebook page.